Hi everyone. Yesterday I did a big firewood processing job and I had to sharpen my saw blade 3 times. The job went from 7 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night, and it was pretty much non-stop except for a 30-minute break of lunch, and we just kept at it. Same chain the whole time, sharpened it 3 times with my little electric grinder. And now it's time to put it back as close to factory as I can with the Oregon chain grinder. One of the most important steps is to clean the chain of all the sawdust and grit and everything else that is stuck to it. So I use my parts washer for this. Get it kind of lined up here. So I'm just going to take my parts brush and we're going to go one side. We're really going to clean this off good. Come up to the other end. The other way. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing. You can clean these any way you want as long as they're clean. You can use an ultrasonic cleaner, you can do just a bath in solvent. I like the parts washer because it has a running stream of solvent which helps wash away all the gunk. Now I happen to have a nail right up here, and this chain happens to be long enough that it hangs right there. So we'll let it drip for a couple minutes. So now I've got my chain that has dripped dry for a few minutes, and I'm just going to hook it on something here. Use the handle of the milling machine because that's convenient. And now we will blow all the solvent off as much as possible. We'll put the chain on the grinder to inspect it because I have a work light there and it's easier to see the teeth. We need to set the gauge of the chain so that the vise clamps the chain properly. The gauge of this chain is 80 thousandths. And I have my handy little sharpening chart that I made. And right now I am working on the processor saw, the 18HX chain, 18HX chain. It's an 80 thousandths gauge. It uses a 3/16 wheel. The top plate angle is 35 degrees, the down angle is 10, and the top plate cutting angle is 60 degrees. But first we're going to inspect the teeth. So what I'm looking for is, so here's my depth gauge, or my, the gauge setting, and it's already on 80 thousandths, so that's good. So what I'm looking for is a couple of things. Severe damage, which I don't believe there is any, and I'm looking for the shortest tooth. So when I see a tooth that looks shorter than the previous tooth, I'm going to measure it. So right here looks like 1.365. Okay, so now I'm going to keep looking at these teeth. Actually, you know what I should do? Before I go any farther, let me get to the beginning of the chain so I have a starting point. Come on, I've gone completely around. There it is. Okay. On this chain, there's 2 teeth. There's 2 right-hand teeth, one after the other. That's most likely because of the length of the chain, the way it was assembled. So we're going to start here, and now I know when I get back to this point, I know I've looked at all the teeth. We already measured one. That tooth is about the same. Looked a little shorter, but it's not. So I'm just looking for short teeth. And if I find one shorter than the first one I measured, I will readjust. This one's a little shorter. Okay, 0.353. So lock that down. That one looks short. Oh yeah, that one's way short. Okay. So this tooth is so short that I don't want to grind. I don't want to grind all these off to that length. That's madness. That's almost 2 millimeters shorter than the rest. What did I say? 0.353, and this is 0.295. So it's extremely short. If I use this tooth as my master tooth, I'm going to severely shorten the life of this chain. Now I know that's the wrong way to go about this, but I'm a cheapskate and I don't want to shorten the life of the chain for the sake of one tooth. Now once I get the appropriate tools and components, what I would do is I would replace just this tooth, and then I don't mind filing it back to the length of the other ones. But this one, I'm not going to use that as my master tooth. It's way too short. I'm just going to leave it alone. When I sharpen the rest of them, that one's just going to be short. So one tooth that's short shouldn't be a big deal as long as the rest of the teeth are all the same. Okay, now I'm back to the two right hand teeth. Now what I should have done, and I didn't do it, was I should have measured, or should have marked that tooth, because that's going to be my master. Okay, so what I've done here is I've picked one of the shorter teeth, and this is going to be my master tooth. So I'm going to dicum that so I know where to start and finish. Dicum. This is layout fluid. It stains. It stays on when it's dry. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is set up the grinder. I covered this in my overview video about changing wheels. Right now I have the wheel on for setting the rakers, so we need to remove this wheel and put on the actual grinding wheel. So we're going to install the wheel, then we're going to dress the wheel. I think it's already pretty close. Now by dressing, what I mean is the edge of the wheel has to follow a profile. Now if you're using a round file, well, the round file is simply round. That will just fit right in the tooth, and it will file the gullet down at the bottom, and it will file the tooth, and it completely fills that space in there. Well, the grinding wheel is basically half of the profile. So the grinding wheel has to be properly dressed. There's two ways to profile the wheel. The first method is to use a dressing brick. And what you do is you turn the grinder on, and then you just carefully radius the wheel. You radius the wheel, and then you match the profile with this gauge. So that's one way to do it. It's imprecise, but you just roll that around and kind of shape it until it fits the groove. And it's pretty close, but I want to get it a little bit better. So what I've got here is this little gadget, and this is a wheel dresser. I believe it's a tungsten carbide wheel dresser. You line it up so it's on center of the wheel, and then just bring the wheel down slowly and just barely touch the carbide. And what that will do is it will create the radius. Now obviously the head has to be set at 90 degrees to do this. It's a little tedious because this is an automatic vise. I need to move the camera because I am in my own way here. I need to be able to look at it straight on. I wish there was an optional manual lock for this vise. In any case, all right, we're going to turn the wheel on. We're just going to gently bring this down until it touches. Since this wheel was pretty close, it didn't need much. So now the wheel is properly radiused. We can take our tool out of here. Now we'll put the chain back in with the master tooth right there. And now the next tedious step is to get this adjusted properly. Again, because the vise is automatic, it's a little more difficult. My master tooth is a left-hand tooth, so we're going to turn this for the left, and this gets set at 35 degrees. Right here, 35 degrees. And we're also going to do the 10-degree down angle, which means this needs to slide in to 10 degrees. Right there is our scale. And we're going to go into 10 degrees. That's called the 10-degree down angle. And then we'll tighten this down. Now we're going to reset the head angle. And this calls for 60 degrees. Anyway, now we're going to come down and we're going to get the blade adjusted so that it just barely touches the tooth. Now the grinding wheel is just skimming the shortest tooth, so we're going to that'll sharpen that tooth. And then the rest of them will have to be sharpened back to this length. The next thing we need to do is we need to set the gullet depth. Now that is done with this knob back here. So we're going to come down into the tooth and we're going to just get to the bottom. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to hit the side plate here. So we're going to come down here. And I want to make sure that I'm not touching the side plate, that I'm only grinding on the tooth. I think we're ready. Okay. The next left-hand tooth. Now, you don't just come down and go whack and grind the tooth away, because you're going to wreck the properties of the tooth. So you just go nice and slow and skim it. You don't want to overheat the tooth. That's what I'm getting at. let's look at this tooth. Give it a careful inspection. So I ground the first one. I want to look at the second one here. I'm going to lift this off so I can see it better. Okay. And that is a very nice sharp tooth. Although I have to admit I didn't get a good cut down in the gullet there, but I don't want to grind the side plate, so it's kind of a trade-off. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if the camera's going to focus on this. And that light is a glare. I can't get the camera to focus on this. Anyway, it's a very nice sharp edge, so I'm happy with that. Get this back in here. Turn my light back on so I can see. Now we're going to get to the next tooth and repeat. Alright, now if I put my finger on this tooth, it should be cold, because I'm just taking my time and skimming it. This is time consuming, but what you wind up with is a very sharp chain. There's my short tooth. There's a short tooth. I'm going to mark that one. So I know which one it is. Now this tooth here looks damaged, so this might take a little more patience. The other thing going slow does is it helps prevent a burr. When you're doing the left-hand teeth, you're grinding away. You're grinding away from the cutter. So what's happening is it's pushing some of the material up and forming a burr. As opposed to when you do the other teeth, the right-hand teeth, the wheel is cutting into the cutting edge, and thereby not leaving a burr. Now some guys take these grinders and reverse their direction, and I may yet do that, I don't know, but I think this is working okay. Okay. Now, put my finger on there. Yeah, it's a little warm, so it's a little too aggressive. Okay, then we just keep on going. I'm going to go all the way around until I get back to my master tooth, and then I'll switch sides. Alright, now I'm back to my master tooth. Now I'm going to switch this around for the right hand cutters. So we loosen this, we turn the vise 35 degrees the other way. Now most a regular chainsaw is going to be 30 degrees. This is a harvester saw, so it's definitely different. Sorry for showing you the back of my head. I'm trying to look at this mark. Okay. So now we're 10 degrees down angle the other direction. Okay, so if that's my master, I'm going to just start with the next tooth back. Now in theory, this should be, everything should be set. So we have the stop set. Now I'm just going to bring this down and check it, and it should be right there, and it is. So when I sharpen this with my little hand grinder, even though I have a guide mark to follow, it's very imprecise. So this makes every angle the same. So you get a much better sharpening on your blade. Okay, now we're going to do all the right hand teeth. Oh, wait a second. We have an issue here. I'm going to turn the vise a little bit. There we go. Okay, tighten everything down. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of these teeth. Now this time, the grinding wheel is going into the cutter. There we go. So the grinding wheel is going in this way, so it's not making a burr like it did on the other side. But by going really slow, I prevented the burrs from building up. So that's kind of the technique for that. Let's see if we can get you a better angle here. Alright, next tooth. That was the one tooth I had that was very short. And I think what I'll do with that one is just barely touch it with a file. Matter of fact, let me do that real quick since I'm here. I'm just going to skim that with a file. And call it good. See, it is very hard to maintain the proper angle with the file, doing it by hand. So really, to do it right, you have to have a guide. Alright, so one tooth that's out of whack, maybe two teeth are out of whack. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll be minimum impact. So I'm just going to keep going until I get back to my master tooth, and then we'll check the rakers. Now what I've done is I have filed one of the rakers down to exactly where it needs to be. I've set my depth stop, and now I'm doing the left hand rakers. Now it says in the book that you can do both of them. The book says you can do both rakers. In other words, I could go here and do this one, but what I've discovered is, because this one is leaning kind of into the wheel, it doesn't really behave too well. So what I have to do then is kind of reset everything and bring it back to, I push the vise to the back to give it more of an angle to push away, because I don't like it jamming into the raker. It just doesn't feel right. So I'm doing the left hand ones first, and then I'll go back and do the right ones.